Hi, Adam here from Reling Equipment Hire, and this is our 11th episode on the YouTube platform, and it's all about guided rope inversions, why we use them, the benefits of them, and like some tips and tricks on, making them go in easier. So if you are watching this, you've probably already been in the game a while. So if you've got your tabs and your tearaways and you're doing liner only shots, this is probably the last weapon in your arsenal you need to acquire, and it's a fantastic weapon. It makes your tabbies going easier. Things that you never used to deem possible become possible. Squares, turning up junctions, multiple squares, droppers. It's a fantastic tool. So let's get started. So, guided inversions. Essentially, what it is, it allows us to go in the direction we want. And how we do it is we get a rope through the drain in the travel that we want to go. So, for example, from a gully, suck out the gully, float a rope down to, say, a shaft, and then we grab the rope and then we pull it up. Now, depending on the condition of the pipe, say sharps or length of pull, you've got to be wary of which rope you choose. If it's got lots of sharps, I'd definitely be upright into a strapping rope, and because it's make sure there's no knots in it, make sure it's of good quality, it's not covered in resin, because this is your make or break of the day. So good strapping rope through the drain, and then what we do then is we put a guide rope within the liner. So say for example we're doing a guided tabby from a 6-inch shaft, 4-inch inlet, and say they've replaced the inlet and there's about a starting pad of this much. We do our tabby like normal, but essentially we put a rope inside. Now, say for example, it's going to be a difficult install. We will want to opt for, say, a strapping rope. Now, the problem with the strapping ropes is that they vac flat. So make sure that you mush it up, make sure that that resin infiltrates around the back of it. Now, these ropes are great because they're thin and they're strong, but they may snap on you. So make the decision on the day which rope you go for. So say we've done our tabby, say it's a 400mm snuff, 2 meter deep shaft, and our tab say 2.2. Do your tabby exactly like normal. Do your fold backs, your glue joints, do your fold back for your knots. And then what we're going to do, we're going to put the guide rope inside the liner. So you wet it all out as normal. Then you pull out all your excess resin. You fold your tab and your snuff back, then fold your cali back over your knots, tie your knots. And this, crucially, as you roll on, this rope in the middle gets tied to the rope in the drain. And what we do is, as we invert in, there's someone at the other end pulling, and it inverts and it'll spit the guide rope out. So say when it hits a shaft like that, we're going to deflate and we're going to pull it down and then carry on. You can do multiple squares. You can go up junctions at a cat. So it's a fantastic tool. Now, the person that's pulling the rope has to know what they're doing. Now, if that camera's coming back and we're pulling, if you've got a good second man helping you, you can just invert nice and steady and trust him to do it. But what can happen is, if he's not on the ball and this goes slack, you can then overrun your rope. It's not the end of the world. You just deflate, as long as it's not 5 meters, deflate, pull it back from under, and then get back on that contact point, that point of inversion, and start again. So, but really, the person inverting on the wheel, they want to see that camera. The person pulling, they want to see that camera. So utilize your HQX app, walkie-talkies, video calling, whatever you have to do. Connectivity between the installers and the point of inversion is crucial, okay? So what can happen sometimes is resin, especially if you're shooting, say, from a downstream back up, resin gets on the camera. Now, it's not the end of the world. You pull it out, you give it a clean, and you might not be able to get back with the camera. But what you can do is, as you're pulling, the guy with the pull rope is pulling, he holds the camera and on this right on that edge, and it gives the person installing perspective. So if he knows he's going nice and slow and he sees that rope coming, he knows he's onto a winner, okay? But it can be difficult, say, then when you want to go up that junction, if you're blind, it makes it extremely difficult. So don't get caught by the camera, keep eyes on it, keep talking to each other. And yeah, that's it. That's what my main advice would be: talking, communication, and yeah, that's my advice for that. And we'll move on to some more tips and tricks now. So pulling the rope, we're just going to say that this is finished floor level, and that's a gully, and this is the rope that's in the drain. And be aware that the rope that you're eventually going to pull out will be absolutely saturated in resin. So black plastic everywhere, lots of good microfibers, could be in a swanky place, gloves, deck yourself out, and ideally there should be an experienced puller and say apprentice or labourer to give you a hand as well. So this is what you're going to do. You're going to pull it out straight into the bucket, especially when the resin starts coming. So just be aware that it is going to get a bit messy. So plan for it. Now this is the speed roughly what you want to do. So you're going to be pulling the camera back and the rope at the same time, keeping it around this, about that distance and about this fast. And you might have to pull the camera back a bit more. Say when you go around a bend, you don't want to be stuck in that bend. You want to get it back to see the perspective. And this is what I mean about perspective. Say, for example, we got resin on the camera, we've yanked it out, give it a clean. Now, this is what I mean by perspective. Hopefully you can see that. I'll probably put a split screen for you. Now, you're going to hold the camera here and hold it against that edge. Now, you can see there that it's right in the center. Not like that, not like that, like that. You can see it right on the edge. And he's going to be pulling about this fast. And the person inverting on the drum will marry up that speed. Now, if the rope stops like that and he's still inverting, that means he's overrunning. So he's got to be quick on the ball, deflate. He's going to pull this again, right? Got contact again, and away we go again, okay? So that's roughly what you want to be seeing. And that's what I mean about perspective, okay? So, like I said, the person pulling really needs to have a good idea, and they need to be talking all the time. And ideally, like if you can hear each other, put the phones away and just shout to each other. It's always better sometimes. And we're going to go on and give you a few tips on getting that excess resin out, because it can get a bit messy, okay? So yeah, over to the next bit. Every job is just different. You've got to look at the job and think, how hard am I going to be pulling this? If you've got an IO that's got a plastic IO that's sharp and deep, and then it runs to say a square dropper and a 90, and then maybe round another 90, would I be trusting paracord? Probably not. That's 270 kilo, but the problem with it is it's hard to pull. If you have to pull hard, this is going to rip into your hands. It stretches a little bit. It could technically snap on a sharp. So I'd be uprating to say a strapping rope. Easy to handle. Just make sure that you're infiltrating. But what I'm trying to get at is you should be like this. You should have a good selection of ropes. I've even got wire. Never used it. Just don't like the abrasiveness inside the liner. But technically could use it. I've got 6 milli. I've got 8 milli. 100 kilo utility cord, strapping, string lines. Carry a variety of ropes, and then you won't get caught on the day, okay? But yeah, make the rope suit the job. So a massive bonus we get with the guided inversion is when they're coupled up to a tabby. Now, as we all know, 4-inch tabbies can be problematic. And the reason they're problematic is because you've got a lot of gear trying to get through a little hole. And so if that point of inversion isn't strong enough to overcome the friction and or the inertia to pull the tab through, we can have some real issues. Now, what the guided, especially 4-inch guided inverted tabbies, what happens is if you opt for a strapping rope And again, make sure that you're infiltrating it using probably clear cali so you can see that your wet line is wet out. Because this inversion rope is all the way through and then through the knot, when you're inverting and you pull it, it actually helps the liner invert. So you can actually achieve much more and have a much more higher success rate with turning a standard tabby into a guided tabby. Now, you may not even necessarily have to guide it around a square or up in a certain inlet. You're just putting it there for protection. Now, when you use the strapping rope, because obviously it's wider and it's more load bearing, it takes away the inertia of the liner. So you can get much bigger tabbies in. So you could probably get a 30, 40 meter 4-inch tabby in that normally you would never attempt, because worst case scenario, you get halfway and it runs out of momentum. You take your PRV off and it still won't go. But if you've got the guided doing a guided one with a strapping rope, when it's pulled, it takes some of the burden off the point of inversion. So if you're unsure that your 4-inch tab is going to go, turn it to a 4-inch guided inversion with a strapping rope. That's my top tip for success. And remember, couple the correct resin, a slower resin, and you'll have much more chances of success. So a little tip on getting the excess resin out. Now, obviously, there's a rope inside that we can't cut. Got to be careful of that. And what I do is just say, that's my vac. This is my my wastage, my little X where my vac is. I do a little hole on my main cut line and I bring the guide rope out of that. I then do my vac as normal. So we're going to wet out. Once the resin hits that mark, we obviously take our vac off, which will be hard because it's this good resin, this good tape. So we take our vac off. So the best tape ever, this Leicestershire RSM seller, it's the best. So we've took that, we put our plastic in, and then we're going to go through the rollers. And once we've got all our wastage out, what we do then is, because this is cut here and the guide rope is coming through, it means that we haven't got all that resin onto this guide rope. Makes it a lot cleaner. And also it's got a starting hole for us to get our scissors in, and it makes it easier so you can pull your rope away, do your cut, get off your excess, and then this comes over and it's not got resin all over it. You can see the hole, you can see your rope, that you're not going to chop through it, because that's the last thing we want to do, okay? So yeah, I put a little hole on the main cut line and then the vac there. It's just a case of putting your cali back over, tying your knots, and away you go. So yeah. So one of the pitfalls is when you're inverting them is, say we're pulling in a downstream excavation or eye or whatever, and pulling the camera back, is keeping good vision and perspective, especially when we're going down shafts. Say you've got a 2 or 3 meter shaft that you've got to navigate. Don't be tempted to keep the camera in the shaft, because what will happen is resin will drip down and it'll get on your camera and it'll mess your day up. So what I do is, say we're navigating down here, is your internal guide rope, your point of inversion. I won't even, before I get to here, I'll pull the camera all the way back to here so I can see the crest or the apex of this 90. And I'll pull it back enough so I can get perspective and see that rope moving against that edge. Because the last thing you want is your camera in the vertical, gets resin on it, it just makes your life hard. So, all right, you're not going to see the point of inversion all the time, but you want to get perspective, and having the camera in the right position and getting perspective is key to these installs. So there's one scenario. That's what I always do. So we're just going to cut to a little video after this of a good guide inversion landing smack on. I was quite lucky that day. But be aware, when you're doing your retraction rates, it's not like a normal shot where you can keep going in and out with your cali, increasing the pressure and getting the liner to come back. It's more of a hit and hold, like a tabby. So just be aware, if you have to put landing pads in, do so, and adjust your calculation rates accordingly. So over to the video.
And the upstream shot was just a no-go. It started off in a powder room with a very fancy vanity, and it just wasn't an option, and they'd had an existing renovation with plastic at the upstream, so the only access really was a back-to-wall pan with multiple 90s embedded in the wall, and there was a clear out at the bottom. It was underneath a fancy vanity, and that's what we used to pull our guide rope. So normally I would go with a smaller middle liner rope. That's the rope that's been spat out. But for this occasion, we've gone with a 1 ton RSM strapping lay flat because the pull was so hard. He was Alan, fair play to him, from Bayside Plumbing, big kahunas, so congratulations taking this job on. He was on his hands and knees and he was pulling inch by inch, trying to get the rope to go the way we wanted. So yeah, as you can see here, we've met our first slope junction. That's a 6x6. When the 3D liners are in 6-inch pipe and they're fully expanded, they're actually quite difficult because the force behind that inversion is quite strong. So as you can see here, we're trying to get it round. I'm deflating for Alan, and then I'm telling him via phone, both on loudspeaker. He's got connectivity to the CX9. Not CX9, so that's a Mazda. Silly sausage. To the rigid CS. I don't know, the rigid anyway. It's connected. We're both connected, and that is critical, because especially on a shot like this, because we need to be able to control that turn and that pull up the junction. You can do them with just the eyes on the rope, and then I would have to marry up the speed of the inversion off the drum with the rope. But for this particular one, because of the risk factors, and as you can see, even with eyes on it, I'm struggling to get it to go up. So yeah, we're about to see it come round. It does get easier than this. It does come, and the trick is when you're putting these in, try not to get resin on the camera. Don't let the liner catch up with the camera, so you need to be communicating at all times. You want that rope to be pulled nice and steady and with no slack ever. Now for Alan this day it was very difficult, so I was onto it. What you don't want is the liner to overrun the guide rope or the rope that's being spat out, because if that happens, if you quit, you can stop, deflate, and if it's not gone meters over, you can just deflate, let it deflate and pull it out and then start again. So as you can see, we're on our merry way again now. So the next junction we're going to come up is a 6x4. Now the way I like to do it is I'll get about a meter away from the junction with the camera, and then I pull the camera around and I just pull it back. I pull it up the junction about a meter because I need perspective, because the only way to gauge it now is by the strapping going around the apex of the inlet. So as you can see now, it's coming towards me, and I'm going to get that camera back up the inlet, and then I'll watch it blind, but with the strapping as an indicator. And the key to it when you're doing these is marrying up that speed with that strapping, because if your inversion's going and that strapping's not moving, that means you're overrunning, and that's when you have to stop and rectify things. So here it comes. This is, see, there was a bit of connectivity issue with the camera, then it just jumped, but luckily we haven't gone too far. Well, it's capped anyway, so we couldn't. We just deflate, and then he's going to drag it up. But by this time, whenever you do these shots, be aware that you have to pull resin into your pull area. Now, he had a couple of apprentices. We had it decked out with plastic. We had it rolling into into buckets, but still get your ethanol, get your sugar soap ready. Get all your microfiber cloths. Get ready to clean, guys. And again, that's where we went for the uprated strapping. So we're at about 0.8, 0.9 of a bar, but we're coming to the midway point of the inversion now. This is when all the internal surfaces are at the max area of exposure. So we've got maximum surfaces touching. Now that's why we use lots of oil and we take it steady and we're jiggling the drum, tapping it. And I only ever tie one knot. I don't like two big clunky 6-inch knots trying to get through a 4-inch junner, because every 1% gain you can get, take, because you will need it. Now this is where I think that knot actually got stuck on a junction. It does seem to get stuck. As you can see, we've got a lot of resin in her. We've got that tidal wave, that tsunami of resin being pushed, and that's what we wanted, really. We wanted to seal this properly. They were getting lots of water under the building. They were getting damp issues. We did dye testing. It was coming out all over the place. So it was in slab or very inaccessible. It couldn't have been dug without them moving out. This is where I think the knot got caught. I'm not gonna lie, it was heart in mouth time. We're coming up to 8-9 minutes. So the wet out was, say, 15 minutes. The roll on, we're at about 30 minutes after mix now.
So we're coming to the end of this episode about guided inversions, and they are an absolute fantastic tool that can be coupled up to the existing weapons in your arsenal. So we can combine them with tearaways, tab shots, 3D shots, liner only shots. So it's just an addition to a widespread set of tools. Okay. Once you get your head around them, they're pretty simple, and they actually make life easier. And it will take you to that upper level, that more advanced stage in relining, and it's a great tool to have. Now, I know that this isn't on a live demo site, so it's hard to exactly demonstrate it, but if you're in the game and you're getting to that level, you'll understand what I'm saying. And I know it's one for the purists, and it's not going to get many views, but anyway, hey ho, is what it is. Next week's episode is back to basics on a live demo site. Set up, how I set up, how I do my markouts, how I shoot, and how we get our callies in. So back to basics. I'm Adam Whaling from Reline Equipment Hire. If you want to hire me out for the day and I can show you all the tips and tricks, 0401 276 433, or contact me on my socials. And hopefully you'll love your lining like I do. I'm Adam. See you later. Bye-bye.